Hello everyone and welcome to the Lazy Kitchen. This afternoon we're going to make some sort of Southwestern hash that has ground poultry, I think it's chicken today, vegetables and lima beans and corn. And I hope you're going to enjoy it as much as I do. It's one of my favorite when I have a crazy week and I need to be able to put something down that reheats really well. For those of you who are new to the Lazy Kitchen, we're happy that you're joining us today. The Lazy Kitchen is designed for people who don't have time to cook, don't enjoy to cook, really don't know how to cook, but they still want to make a healthy meal that fits in their budget for themselves and their family. So 3 simple rules. Rule number 1, lazy. No prepping, no cutting, no cleanup. We're going to do everything into one container today, and we have to do it under 10 minutes, which is why we have the timer here that holds me accountable. Rule number 2 is thrifty. We're going to try to balance not spending too much money and still getting quality, healthy ingredients. I'll tell you exactly where I source things and for how much. And rule number 3 is healthy, and we're going to try to make healthy appetizing as well. We want to use whole foods ingredients, and we want to have a all-in-one meal that includes a good protein, a good source of carbohydrates. Incidentally, I'm celiac, so everything's going to be gluten-free. And then we're going to have the vegetables, the infamous vegetable that nobody seems to get enough of. And we want to at least have 2 of them. Actually, today we have 3 of them. So before we get started, I will tell you what we're going to use. So today the recipe we're going to use is some sort of electric multi-function cooker. Lots of brands out there. Don't need anything fancy. This is my old working horse 6-quart Instapot. You don't have to, you could make it stovetop, but these are nice to have, especially for people who don't have much of a kitchen, or some people that live in situations where you don't have access to the kitchen. You can just plug those in and do that on any surface. And when you make something in a cooker, an electric cooker, or you're purchasing one, pay attention to just 2 and maybe 3 functions. 1, you want to be able to saute or heat things up at a high temperature initially to brown your onions and your meat, and then you need to be able to set it to slow cook. So on my particular unit, I use the saute. You could also use the manual for the browning, and then you go to the slow cook. And there's an extra function that I think is really useful for those of you who are cooking in the morning and you want to have your meal ready when you come home in the evening, like I do. After 12 hours, I'm starving and I want to eat right now. It's the delay start. So you can get things ready while you're brewing yourself coffee in the morning, 10 minutes or less. And then you can delay start to have the meal start slow cook in the 6 to 8 hours window prior to you getting home and sitting down for dinner. So we're going to use the electric cooker. As far as the ingredients, and that's really all we need, you need some sort of stirring utensil. As far as the ingredients, we're going to start by using onions. These are $1.20, looks like at Walmart. I'm going to use about half of it, so that's going to be 60 cents worth of onions. You can take them out of the freezer and put them back in very easily. We're going to use some bell peppers. This happens to be a nice tricolor mix. Looks like that from Trader Joe. These are like $1.70 or something. We're going to use green beans. That's going to add a little green for color. That's right around $1. And for the starches, we're going to use corn. We try to use organic corn when we use corn. It's going to be a pretty reasonably good carbohydrate. I have lima beans someplace. Well, I thought I had lima. Oh, there they are. They fell off the counter. Lima beans is nice. It's kind of a mix between a vegetable, a little bit of a protein, and healthy starch. They're cheap. I found them frozen. They're better than canned. This was like $1.50, and I already used half the bag the last time I made this recipe. As far as the protein, we're going to use, you can use ground turkey or ground chicken. You can really use ground beef if you want to as well. This happens to come out of the freezer. It's an antibiotic-free white meat ground chicken. a pound for $3.11. Probably was on sale, but it's still a pretty affordable meat when you get the ground meat. Condiments, good old salt, a little bit of oil. I'm just going to use good old olive oil, and chili powder. You really can find that in any grocery store. Goes a long way. Cilantro, kind of the bottom of my spice rack there. This goes really well with Southwest dishes. And then we're going to use a green salsa or Tomatillo Salsa for the sauce. Those you can find in a lot of grocery stores. Read the ingredients. Some of them have more additional ingredients than others. Some of them, you really should have things like just the tomatillo, the spices, and maybe a little bit of citric acid for preservative, but you really want to try to find a brand that doesn't have too much junk added. So let's be ready to roll. I am going to saute, and I am going to start the timer. We're going to brown the onions with some olive oil. Okay. And one thing you want to do when you are using frozen vegetables and you thaw them, they tend to get really waterlogged. So I always have kind of a catch container, which happens to be an old yogurt container, to try to drain a little bit of the juice. There you go. So I'm going to use maybe half a bag of the onion, and they'll start browning a little bit. The Instapot needs just maybe a minute to warm up. The next thing that we'll do is the chicken. I probably want to wait maybe a couple minutes until the onions have browned. So while this is happening, I'm already going to cut and drain my bell peppers. That's a lot of juice. For a recipe like this that's a little bit juicy, it's not crucial if you just throw in a little more water, vegetable juice with your stuff. So you can hear the sound of the Instapot. Cut my green beans. Those normally don't give off too much liquid, just a little bit. I am going to cut my corn. Yep. Something there. Okay. So the onions are getting a little bit browner, so I think now would be a good time to add the ground chicken. This came from the deli, so it looks a little different than maybe what you get in the frozen food section. And mix it in there. Now this is the time you want to add your spices. That's actually how you get the flavor into the meat and the onions. So I'm going to add a little bit of salt. Now the salsa typically will have some salt, so you don't want to get too crazy on how much salt you add on the front end. And I'm going to add the chili. Then again, depending on what your family likes, we can get pretty generous or less generous if you have people that I'm not so sure. Oh, that smells good. I'm getting a little bit hungry. I'm going to add just a tiny bit of olive oil there to avoid things sticking to the bottom of the pan. Very good. And you want to wait until the chicken's not looking too raw, like it doesn't obviously have to be fully cooked, because it'll be, this recipe probably needs maybe about 4 hours, you know, depending on your electric cooker. Between 4 and 5, doesn't need to cook too long. And so now we're going to add pretty much everything else in whatever order you want. I don't think I'm going to use all the green beans. I have attempted to make this recipe with okras, which is one of my favorites, but I've been voted off the island for doing so. So I have had to go back to green beans, but if you want to be a little bit more adventurous, like I am, go okras. It's actually a very traditional Southwestern vegetable. It goes great with that. It goes great with the chili powder. So we're gonna add a colorful bell peppers. Rid of things as I go. I don't like to clean up. Oh, and the color is looking really nice. Very good. And we are going to add the corn. So this recipe is actually a little bit low cal, low fat. You have the poultry, you have, you know, vegetables. If you are trying to kind of watch your calories, this is a great recipe. If you have people in your household that need a lot of calories, like they're working very physical jobs, or you have teenage kids that are in every sport imaginable, you're going to want to add a little bit of a fat, and you can use a little cheese at the end. You could use olives if you like them. So you can vary that a little bit based on the energy needs of the person who's going to be eating it. For me, I try to have a little bit of a lighter lunch because I don't want to get tired for the afternoon. So this is perfect for my lunch. I can just throw it in the microwave for a few minutes. And it's basically ready to go. So cilantro and salsa we're going to do last. I'm going to put my cilantro. And I'm going to put my salsa. And I like a lot of salsa, but not everybody likes as much salsa as I do. So you put as much or as little salsa as you want. Like every single dish that we make, you can doctor it the way you like. If you like things like canned chilies for a little extra spice, you can do that. You know, if you happen to not be so lazy and you want to add fresh herbs or extra salt, it would be good. Voila! 6 minutes and 53 seconds. I still have 3 minutes left to bag these things and put them in my freezer. Just throw everything in the dishwasher that needs a good wipe. And I'm now going to shut this off, and I'm going to put it on slow cook. We're actually going to try to eat it later tonight, so I'm not going to use the delay start. But let's say if you were to do it in the morning, at 7 in the morning, and you try to eat at 6 o'clock at night, and it needs 5 hours, you would put delay start for things to start cooking around 1 o'clock, and it will be nice and ready for you when you get home. So I hope that you have enjoyed cooking with me. I am going to find the lid for it. There is the beast. So I am going to seal it. There we go. And now I'm going to shut off the saute version, and I'm going to transition to the slow cook, and I'm going to put it for 5 hours. We're going to eat hours later today, so I'm not going to do a delay start, but that's certainly an option that you would have right now if you need to start a little bit later. There we go. Well, thank you for coming and cooking with me. I hope that you enjoy all the free time that you still have after spending less than 10 minutes in the kitchen. I look forward to seeing you for the next recipe.